Alrighty, folks, good morning. As you may noticed, I spruced up the PowerPoint a little bit. After class last week, I went on to add a slide about something or another. I don't know what. And I must have been feeling creative because I did a few other things. So it's pretty much the same PowerPoint, just with a little bit of embellishments, flash and flare, and my old trick of fading the photograph to be a backdrop. So yeah. So we'll catch up to where we were, B. And where was that? All right, so I think we were right around here, and we were finishing up things you could make out of lava. So where this harkens back to is the very first slide, really, where we said the V, capital V kind of thing, the three things you can make out of lava, or the three things that come out of a volcano, rather. And we said lava, pyroclastic material, and gases. So, we spent a lot of time talking about lava. So now we're going to move on briefly to pyroclasts. So we told you, perhaps, hopefully, the pyroclasts come in three sizes. Actually, there should be a slide for that too. Goodness gracious. If I think about it, I'll fix that yet again. Pyroclasts come in three sizes. Ash, A-S-H, ashes. Cinder, with a C. And then what they call blocks or bombs. So ash, cinder, block, or bomb. Ash is, well, ash. Cinders, cinders I always think of like embers of a fire. They're much larger. This is strictly about size, not anything to do with composition, of course. So think of your bonfire, fire in your fireplace kind of thing. And then blocks or bombs, really there is no end to how big these things are. I'm sure they have a starting size, and your textbook probably even mentions a starting size. But we try not to throw numbers at you, as little as we can at least. But I think the first two, at any rate, are easy enough to picture, ashes and cinders. And blocks and bombs, again, feel free to picture something even as big as a car. These volcanoes have so much force and power. Think to your Hollywood movies. Okay, again, there's not a whole lot of volcano movies out there, but there were some, 80s and 90s at any rate. I think they kind of got bored with them through the 2000s. But that stuff that comes flying out of a volcano, and people on the ground are trying to dodge. You got your basketball-sized things. That's still in the cinder realm, roughly. Here's a couple here we've been staring at, and they look kind of odd, and I think that's really sort of a aerodynamicy imposed upon them as they're flying through the air, kind of thing. Okay, they get kind of shaped, and as they're going through the air, they cool because of the breeze, for lack of a better word. And again, the penny is there for scale. Ash may sound kind of benign, it's just ash. Until you're reminded about Pompeii. All right, Mount Vesuvius. The year jumped out of my head. Their entire village was buried in ash, and a friend of mine was there, I guess last year. And was telling me all about it. And I said, hey, you don't have any pictures, do you? So I'm lucky enough to have these in my collection, never having gone there. Some of these aren't. I apologize if they upset some of you. But you've obviously heard the stories. The Roman centurions in their place, and they don't leave their post, and they were preserved there all the time. Well, normal folks too got caught off guard. I think it was very early in the morning that it erupted, and it was a surprise to all. The horse. But look at the detail. I mean, you could even see the shirt sleeves, and that one I have to kind of wonder if there wasn't a little carving involved. That's just to the veins in his arm kind of thing, tendons in his arm. Looks like a sculpture. But the fact that he's not wearing pants, but wearing a shirt, leads me to think that maybe it is real. I don't know what to do with that one. Whenever I take pictures in museums, I'll take a picture of the object and then a picture of the placard. Good tip, by the way. So not just a year later what you were looking at, but even sometimes a week later you forget it, especially if you take a lot of pictures. So ash can be just as deadly as lava. We have two more things that don't really fall under any specific sort of category. Nuit ardente, I believe that is a French word, and so there should be a over at least one of those E's. And then lahars, or lahar. And I think this is actually what I went into tinker with last week. So nuit ardente, I'm told, is French for glowing cloud. Anybody take French in high school? Yeah? Either of those words mean either of those things I just said? Don't remember, or absolutely not? I see head shaking. That doesn't necessarily help.
Absolutely not.
That's not. So what does it mean?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, at any rate, I suppose in the days of Google, it's easy enough to verify that. But so glowing cloud. All right, and glowing cloud is really an understatement. I prefer flaming cloud of death. Maybe that was too many words in French. I don't know, but we'll show you a picture in a minute there and talk about it a little more. Lahars always seems like it's pluralized, right? It should just be a lahar. And when I was out looking for pictures last week, I did see it listed both ways, but the textbooks have always said lahars. Anyhow, a lahars is a volcanic mud flow. Think about all these volcanoes. They're giant mountains, right? And whether you're picturing Mount Fuji or if you could picture some in North America, really any mountain that you've ever seen, a tall one at any rate. What's covering the top? What color is the top? Come on, picture a majestic, tall mountain in the distance. Yeah, snow-capped. Okay, so what happens is there is such thing as a snow line, and no matter where you are, even down in Hawaii, if the mountain's tall enough, there's going to be snow up there. It just happens. So you can get snow anywhere. You just have to be high enough elevation. So anyhow, when the volcano erupts, all that snow melts almost instantly. Yeah, some of it boils off into steam, I'm sure, but the large majority of it melts. And not only a little further down, usually you're above the tree line already, so you don't have a whole lot of soil and stuff there. But further down the mountain, you're going to have some sort of soil, and then not to mention all the ash coming out of the volcano, and it's just this nasty slurry that comes down the side of the mountain. So, like I said, they don't really have a place to be, but important nonetheless. So there's the lahars. We're looking at that dark, it's blackish mess coming down the side of the mountain. And again, scale is hard to tell, but that is a big mountain. There's a Nue Ardente from a side view. Again, I suppose if you were a mile or two off on a neighboring hill or another village, that might look like a glowing cloud. But if you were in front of that sucker, flaming cloud of death is much more appropriate. It is those gases that we talked about that are in volcanoes, boiling hot, okay? And even beyond, boiling, but just my point is super hot. They're usually heavier than air, super dense stuff. So even though that does have some elevation to that cloud there, it is basically rolling down the side of the mountain incredibly fast. It's under pressure, and I think you would be incinerated before you would be, poisoned from the nasty gases that are in there. A ways back, when we talked about some just random features on volcanoes, we mentioned domes, volcanic domes. Remember, and I said, a dome happens when you haven't had activity for a while, the top cools off, and it sort of grows a cork in place, right? And I mentioned that we would get back to that at some point. Well, here it is. Oftentimes you see these Nue Ardentes associated with a nice, safely sealed, in air quotes there, volcano. And what happens is it allows pressure to build up. The gases, the lava, the lava may not be up and ready to bubble over, but boy, those gases have been in there and building up pressure for a very, very long time. And again, those domes sort of grow into place and integrate so tightly that they, that pressure, those gases find a way out, any way out, and sometimes it's the side of the mountain. And so this is sort of actually kind of like a volcanic fart, if you would, but a horrific one, absolutely horrific. So we do tend to see these with these what they previously thought were relatively safe volcanoes. Nowadays, with everything just wired with seismographs, we can tell when these things are rumbling. And you might have some warning that something like this is coming. But the problem is, and this is very similar to earthquakes, we don't always get a chance to talk about earthquakes, so I'll bring it up now. We're monitoring everything for this. The problem is that those rumblings, those tremblings, don't always lead to something. Okay, and it's difficult to tell. I mean, not to pick like a gross example, but think about your stomach. Your stomach's upset, and you're like, oh, this isn't going to go well. And it's rumbling and this, that, and the other thing, and cramping a little bit or whatever. And then it turns out that that's all that happens. But then sometimes, as you know, it can go a lot worse. Well, bring that back to a volcano or a earthquake, and now you have a city at the base of it, and you're the mayor or the governor of the state. And what do you do with that information? You're going to evacuate the whole city because it's rumbling and the geologists, they're all nervous? It's a tough call. Because if you do it once or twice and nothing happens, no one's going to listen to you. They're going to grumble. They probably won't vote you back into office. You evacuated the whole damn town. Da-da-da-da-da-da. But boy, if you don't evacuate people and it does go off, well, that's not good either. So it's a really tough call. And like I said, even 1,000 years ago, totally understandable why we live at the base of these things. The soil's amazing. You guys have enough under your belts right now. Minerals are made out of elements. and nutrients and elements are very similar. This is great soil. Great soil. We grow grapes, we grow all kind of stuff, okay? But nowadays, and you look over, just think of the West Coast here. I don't know if you remember that picture of the Cascades, but you had Tacoma, you had Seattle, you had all these pretty good-sized cities in Washington at the base of, 2 or 3 of these volcanoes down the coast. Some of them are a good bit more remote, mind you, but, we still have good-sized cities by these things, so. Anywho, Nieuwe Ardente and Lahars. So now just a little more randomness. This is really just to give you an idea on some of the stuff we touched upon. Don't worry too much about the labeling here. I was just kind of too lazy to go in and white out some of those words. But this is, we talked about a shield volcano, the one that's kind of like a shield. But picture a trash can lid if you can't picture a shield. And it's layer after layer of lava primarily. Yeah, you're going to get ash, don't get me wrong. But we're talking to you about what they're predominantly made of. Okay? And as such, because it just kind of bubbles up and flows out to the sides, you get these low-formed, low-slope, low-angle, however you want to say it, but really broad-based things. We had you draw a very simple one with just a single vent coming up through your upside-down ice cream cone there. But of course, Mother Nature can do, whatever she wants. So you do quite often see multiple vents, for sure. Especially, again, this is the size of an island, right? So, think about, you don't just have one place where an eruption can happen. This is very, very true of the Hawaiian Islands. So, cinder cones, on the other hand, and again, I really should start to erase these words because, it talks about lava flows, and of course, we told you that cinder cones are a function of pyroclastic material, okay? The cinders flying out of there like a $3 4th of July cone, okay? Just spurting off to the side, but instead of just burning your grass, these chunks of rock are building up and making a cone around this vent. They get very, very steep, and like I said, they don't usually stick around too horribly long in the scope of things, as they just tend to blow themselves to smithereens. Really? About what? The Smithereens. Good band. All right. Siri being helpful. Mount St. Helens. I traditionally show a video about Mount St. Helens. And this is what's going on there. Mount St. Helens erupted in the early 80s. Okay, I was a kid then. And I dare say a mixture of Mount St. Helens and my earth science teacher's enthusiasm at the time. I think I was in like 6th grade. Really kind of turned me on to the earth. Also, it was like it's still a very crunchy, nutty time on the in America with the early 80s, and conservation and all that was really big. But I do remember this event. And what happened with Mount St. Helens is that it is one of those where I was talking about, it went out the side, okay? And while it really sucked for the people on, well, we'll just say the east side here, which is to the right, right? It was better in general. If that had gone out the top, okay, you would have seen a much different effect, a much different radius of devastation, if you would. So, for better, for worse. Also, and I really wish they had a picture D on here. When it blows out the side like that, the top will crumble down and collapse. They lost a lot of footage off the top of Mount St. Helens for this very reason. So just a little infograph there.
We're gonna watch that one movie in class about St. Helens.
We'll talk about that. Just another example here. This is of probably a New Ardente. In your textbooks, they talk about a pyroclastic flow, and I did set out to make a slide about that. Whether this is a pyroclastic flow or a New Ardente is tough, and I don't even know the what volcano we're showing you here. Textbooks, they yell at authors and presenters now about citing their sources and stuff like that. And while they've always given photo credits, textbooks didn't necessarily, and maybe even still today, it's been a while since I've read anything other than a geology book. They don't always tell you what they're actually showing you a picture of, other than see that volcano in figure 1, So I don't know what volcano this is, but they were using it to show you how material would leak out the side there. So could be a pyroclastic flow, could be a New Ardente. I mentioned Crater Lake a ways back when we were talking again about the Cascade Range. This one is down closer to California. I believe it's still in Oregon, though. And when we had the conversation about whether we call a volcano extinct or dormant or active, and also when we talked about a caldera forming, right? When a volcano has one big last eruption, collapses in on itself. All right, you see that happening here. The magma chamber empties itself out, more or less. The volcano blows up, collapses down in on itself, and more or less seals off all of the chambers. In the last picture here, we are potentially hundreds, if not thousands of years later. Said collapsed volcano or caldera has filled up with water. It's now a beautiful scenic lake with a teeny tiny little volcano in the middle. It's named Wizard Island. I don't know how long it's been called Wizard Island, but I do imagine that the natives, the locals there, had a very similar word for it as they were on the shoreline and seeing lots of sparks and fires and nasty smells coming off of this island in the middle of the lake. Lord only knows what they thought was out there, or at least made up stories to scare the little kids about that was out there. And we've just sort of anglicized that over the years to Wizard Island. But it is, again, another volcano growing up in the middle of a volcano. Okay. A lot of body references today. I apologize, but it's like a zit growing on a zit, an old zit. So that's why, again, I said, you never really want to put that out of business stamp on these things, because where there was once a path for magma or lava, there more than likely will remain. It's a path of weakness, and the pressures down there are amazing. So I'd like to see Wizard Island one of these days. It seems like it'd be a cool place to see. There is another video I used to show. I used to have a lot more time to show movies. I don't know what happened. That referenced this. This is in the Caribbean. I forget the name of the volcano. I don't think it's Sucre, but it is a name you'd recognize. And it was in that Ring of Fire slide that I showed you a ways back. But I think the town is Sucre Hills. This gentleman was either, possibly this was his town, or he's from a neighboring town. And it takes a minute for this to soak in. But what you're looking at here, first of all, you've got the coast, the water to the left there. So then you could bring the docks into focus. And then once you come in from the docks, you start to see some remnants of structures and then a road going through. devastated, just devastated. This was quite a tragedy, and the island still is not great. They rebuilt, much of it, but it's not a great place to live, and something along the effects of those that could have afforded to get off the island have relocated somewhere else, but a lot of folks just kind of sticking it out, and it's like London back in the beginning of the industrial age there, with just the haze and the coughing and everything. It's not great. And then I used to end on this one. I've got a new ending slide now. But just after, I always hate showing pictures of devastation when in fall semester when I do the hurricane lecture, and undoubtedly we have some hurricane coming into the semester. I try not to focus on the slides of all the horribleness, because you get enough of that in the media. But with volcanoes, we've got to talk about the results. So this was kind of a nice, sort of peaceful way to end on volcanoes. It's pretty, it's shiny, it looks like something maybe you'd see at Disney World even. But it's a little baby volcano, maybe being born. You've got that lovely, glossy, black, fresh basalt there. All right, still not obsidian. I know you guys remember obsidian is glassy and black. That's awesome, but it's not going to form like this. So this is still basalt, and yeah, someday maybe it'll be a big volcano. All right, so I have just a neat little slide I like to end on. For those of you at home, sometimes, depending on how I hit play, sometimes it makes it into the recording. Sometimes the recording doesn't capture it. So please do click on this if the recording doesn't catch it for you folks at home. I may not have said it this semester, but it is great that we still have some mad scientists out there in the world. They may not be sewing bodies together and charging them with lightning and whatnot like they did in the olden days. Or maybe they are, but I think they've got genetics now to mess with that. But they are still out there chasing tornadoes and doing the crazy crap that these people are doing. I have to play the overly dramatic music too, so bear with me here for a second. No, it's not over. They're doing some pretty crazy stuff, so it's warranted, I guess. I have no idea what this guy's telling you just say no to. But, oh, this guy. Okay. And his girlfriend. Why does Siri keep turning on? Please shut off, Siri.
I met her yesterday at the gym, and
I hate YouTube. Oh, it's at the end of it. That's the problem. Really? Okay, here we go. It's playing, right? imagine camping there. So, regardless of the fact they're making, good use of the wide-angle lens on their GoPros there, they were seriously, down in there very close, and some amazing shots. And more than likely it was some rich dude going down there, not necessarily a scientist, but hopefully they collected some data. But just amazing footage that at the very least was captured. Back in when I was growing up, we had National Geographic. There was a handful of other people out there. There was Marlon Perkins with Wild Kingdom. There was Jacques Cousteau, and they had their TV shows. But otherwise, in print, it was pretty much National Geographic was looking at sciencey stuff. And in any time there was an article about volcanoes, there was somewhere in the picture these two people down there in tinfoil suits, with their various equipment and so on and so forth. That was a husband and wife team, and they had done hundreds of volcano, explorations and so on and so forth. And then one day it was it. As you saw, even as high up as these guys were, there was the stuff coming up onto the rim where they were standing. They were both killed just at the same time. Luckily, I guess you didn't have to live with one or the other being gone, but they were killed by the volcano bubbling up over the side. It just suddenly spurted up. So lots of research done by some really, really brave people. And again, nowadays, anyone with enough money could go anywhere and do anything. I suppose that's always been true, but we get a lot more footage of it now, and social media makes it much more obvious. So there's some more stuff in your chapter, I'm sure, and please do read the chapter. But when it comes to testing material, if we didn't talk about it in class, we didn't use the terms in class, you won't be expected to worry about it for the test. But if you saw anything that we didn't talk about and you have questions, do feel free to ask about it. Volcanoes are always something that's pretty special for most people. Everybody loves volcanoes. I don't know how a less crass way to say that, but so if you got questions, be sure to ask them.